Welcome to another Lavender Live. We're doing something a little bit different this week. We're not talking about emails. We're talking about what comes before the emails, the leads, where you get them from. And I thought I'd just run with this topic myself, as I've done a bunch of YouTube videos and content and webinars on this myself. So first off, just want to know who's here. If you have any questions about Sales Navigator, I'll make sure I try and get to all those during today's little live sesh here. But if not, just let me know where you're coming in from. Let me know I'm not alone here. That's the main thing. I'll throw the chat up so you can see that while we go. No one's here. Oh no, did I definitely press the button? Anyway, let me know where you're coming in from. Let me know if you have any questions about Sales Navigator. If not though, let's jump straight in. Let's talk about Sales Nav. I think it's one of probably my top two tools. Second is Lavender for prospecting. Because if you can do Sales Navigator the right way, you can find leads that no one else can. That includes your colleagues, your competitors. And those leads are likely being hit up far less than the leads that everyone else is finding, right? You can also start to do really smart searches where you start to weave in triggers or observations into the search, reducing the amount of research you have to do when it actually comes to reach out to them. When you're making a cold call, you don't have to look at their profile and figure out why you're calling, because you can find 20 people who all have a similar reason or good enough reason for you to reach out to them and use the same cold call opener or use the same observation in email, basically making you way more efficient and getting their attention because you've actually done the work as well. It's just you've moved that work from before you write the email right up to when you're doing your search. So let's jump in today. I'd love to know, by the way, folks who are here, on a scale of 1 to 3, 3 being a pro, you work for LinkedIn, you've sold the tool, and 1 being I have no idea how to use this thing. 1 to 5. 5 is pro, 1 is rubbish, never used it. Let me know in the chat where you rate your skill level right now. It might mean I go slightly less or more in depth based on what I see. Hey everyone, Vicky, thanks so much for, I was worried for a second there. But yeah, let's start sharing my screen and make sure I've got the wrong one there. Okay, here we go. Classic. All right. So you should be seeing my screen right now. We're looking at Sales Navigator. We're in the tool. Great first step. Now, I want to first touch on lead lists. So I'm seeing some 2s, some 3s, some 1s. Okay, great. I'm pretty sure there's going to be something new for everyone here today. As long as there's no 5s. I'm the 5, all right? I'm a 10, though. Today I'm the 5. Okay, so the first thing that everyone does when they jump in Sales Navigator, it's probably one of the most commonly used functionalities, is searching for leads. So if I jump across to lead filters here, what I'm going to see is a bunch of different filters that allow me to search for people who I would deem in my ICP, ideal customer profile, the types of customers that you are able to help, the types of customers who are receptive to your product and might actually end up buying. So you can do the basic searches in here. You can do company headcount. So if you know that you're not really trying to sell to startups, you might go for 200 plus. But you might also know that no one with over 1,000 employees has ever bought your tool, so it'd be a complete waste of your time to reach out to those people. You start to narrow down your searches by doing this. You could search the company headquarters location. Let's say my territory as a sales rep is Canada. I'll include that, and boom, now I'm only looking at leads whose companies are headquartered in Canada, but that doesn't mean the lead has to be based in Canada. Because although Vidyard, for example, is based near Toronto in Ontario, Canada, they have employees all over the workplace. And I might want to try and find the VP of sales who might be working remotely in Florida, for all I know. I don't think they are, by the way. But anyway, so you want to make sure you have those headquarters locations, especially if you're running in a territory. You can also do a couple of others, past company, company type, some use cases for those. Past company, if you start putting your past customers in that field, or your current, let's say your biggest customer is Oracle. If you put the past company as Oracle, then you're going to see a bunch of people who have moved on from Oracle, who may have been exposed or used your products in the past, that you can now hit up and be like, hey, so I used to work at Oracle, they're one of our happiest customers, we help them do this, this, and this. Not sure if you used the tool at that time. However, have you got anything similar at your new company? So that's a really good use case for using past company. Current company, less so, unless you're trying to do some really account-based research. Then we get into the job titles. So these are a blessing and a little bit of a curse, and I'll show you why. When I type in the current job title, it's going to give me some kind of preset fields, some preset names, Vice President of Sales, and then I could do VP of Sales, and it's going to tell me, okay, Vice President of Global Sales. It's weird that they're trying to categorize those two things as different things, and you would have seen the search results actually increased when I add the global sales, even though they're the same things. So although it can be helpful to narrow down your search, it might be missing people if you're not including certain titles. I could do Chief Revenue Officer. I could do head of sales. Whoever you sell to, you just want to include the titles. You're going to try and find people who are both politically strong enough in the organization to initiate a buying cycle and actually worth meeting with, but also you don't want to go too narrow to the very top, because those people are going to be the least likely people for you to get the attention of when it comes to actually prospecting them once they're in a list. So as we start to go through these, you can see past job title. I've never really used that one too much. Function. So this is more department, right? So if I type in sales here and I include it, let's watch our search results here. They stayed the same. But what we could start doing is seniority level as well. But if we were doing function sales and seniority level vice president, or CXO, which stands for Chief Anything Officer. I didn't know that for ages. I thought X stood for something else. The CXO is anyone in the C-suite. Then we're actually going to see those results start to dwindle, even though we've already put the job title in there. So I recommend experimenting with both of these, the function and seniority and the specific job title itself. I'm not going to use those today though. And then you got the years in current company, years in current position. So you might use those if you're looking for people who have been at the company or in that position for long enough to start wanting to make changes. You don't want to hit someone up right when they're in a new position, because they're going to be trying to figure things out. They're going to be trying to learn the company, learn the ropes. It's typically 1 to 3 months where people start to initiate change when they've joined a company or start a new role. From here, I'm going to go down to spotlights in seconds. That's really important. But then you got the personal ones. So connection, are you directly connected with them, which would be a first degree connection? Are they a second degree connection? Are you connected with someone who's connected with them? Or are they a third degree connection? Do you have no mutual connections and you're not connected with them? The first degree connection can be really useful to start to see people who you may have spoken to before, who are in your network, who you can already DM or message, whatever it may be. The secondary connections, you get better visibility on their profile, I believe. So that's why it's worth expanding your network so you can see more secondary connections profiles. I'm not going to use that though. So geography, I do use this one. So I'm using the company headquarters location, but I'm also going to try and target leaders in countries who speak the same language as me. So Canada, US, UK, most of Europe, typically, especially at that senior level, will speak very good English as well. But I might want to include those in there, maybe for time zone purposes, but also if a company is headquartered in Canada or North America or US, then it's very likely that the head honcho, let's say, is also based in that location as well. Typically, there will be a VP of sales in Europe. It might be the VP of sales for Europe, and that might not be the right person you want to talk to. So you might want to include some geography there as well. Industry. So this is a tripwire. It's a trap. This is what I'm going to show you in a minute, where it might blow your mind a little bit. The issue is with industry is that it's a self-selected thing for each member, which is always going to include some random error in there as well. I'll give you an example. If I go in here and let's say I'm trying to sell to software tech leaders, and I type in software, I can do software development, see there's so many different options here that people could choose from. Let's just do IT system software, right? We're going down to like 116 results here. That doesn't seem right, does it? So when we go back and actually go into, let's say, type in human resources, let's just include that. We start to get people like Talent.com, ClearStar, and Procom. But those aren't HR companies. Those are software companies. They just happen to sell to HR. So there's some level of random error where people will either put their industry as the industry that their company is, the industry that they think they're in, or an industry that they sell to. And that's why this industry can often miss out some really good fit leads that people are missing because they're being too niche on the industries they're including. Though I could run on a few more examples. I could do like accounting. Some people who probably sell accounting software have listed their industry as accounting. We're going to miss them if we don't widen our search. Show you how to get around that in a minute. Years of experience, connections of, good for intros. But most people these days have pretty broad networks, so they connect with lots of people who they don't even know. So I wouldn't rely on that too much. Groups, this is an interesting one. So you can actually join groups on LinkedIn. They're really not used that often anymore. However, if you're in the same group as someone on LinkedIn, then you can DM them without having to in-mail them. So what that means is you don't have to be a first degree connection to message someone who you're in the same group as. So if you sell to, let's say, security professionals, it's in your best interest to try that. You might not get in because there's admins and moderators who might reject you because they can see you're in sales. If you can join one of those big groups, then it's going to open up a whole new network that you're going to be directly able to message. I reckon I forgot to turn on my good microphone. I'm going to switch. Bup. Hello? Is that coming through now? Okay, it's probably not. We to the bad mic there. Oh, nope, there we go. All right, well, the audio would have been really bad for the first 10 minutes of this, so I do apologize. You should be able to hear me much more crystal clear now. As we were going on, first name, last name, that's only going to be helpful if you're looking for someone in particular, or maybe if I just want to sell to people called Will. It's not really something that I'd want to do ever. Profile language, again, their language, if their profile's written in another language, that shows that they might not speak the same first language as you. So if you're trying to target folks who speak English, like I would, because I don't speak any other languages, because I'm a slacker, I'm sorry, then I might put that in there. But again, I don't want to make any assumptions because plenty of people across Europe, across the entire world, in fact, speak English as a second language. So I don't want to limit my searches with that as well, especially if I'm selling to international audiences. Team link connections of, this is useful to see if anyone's connected with your executive team or any other sellers in your team. And then school. So if anyone went to the same school as you. But I find that quite a superficial thing to reach out to someone because of. So I wouldn't really use that unless you were selling to, let's say, alumni or a certain university. All right, we're going to get some juicy stuff now because that was pretty basic stuff. Those were the level 1s and 2s. Now let's talk about some things that you can do to basically speed your searches up. So right now we've got 1,000 results in this search of VPs of sales in Canada of companies 200 to 1,000 employees in North America. What we don't want to do is now have to scroll through 1,000 people, because we're never going to scroll through 1,000 people because it only shows, I think, 50 a page. There's going to be 20 pages of people to scroll through here, and then look for the ones who look like a fit and then save them to a lead list. That's just not a good use of our time. We might want to narrow down that search to people who are more likely to be looking for your solution, or people who are showing some sign or observable fact that you could start to use to personalize your outreach to. Now, that's where the spotlight section comes in. So in the spotlight section, you can see people who've changed jobs in the last 90 days. That's often an indicator that they are going to start making some changes at some point. I've never heard of an executive join a team and just carry on with how it was running. They're always going to want to change a system or change a process or maybe fire people or hire people, whatever it may be. Mentioned the news in the last 30 days. There's only one person here, but that might be someone I could do a really targeted personalized message to if I can find their news. Posted on LinkedIn the past 30 days. So this is really helpful when you're trying to find people whose content you can kind of scour for personalization points. But again, that's not super efficient because you have to go on everyone's profile, look through their posts for something that will give you a reason to reach out to them. Have shared experiences with you. So that's people who have worked at companies that you've worked at in the past companies you've worked in the past. Following your company. This one's actually really useful, especially if your company is a company that posts content like Lavender, right? If I know that someone's following my company on LinkedIn, then that means they're probably going to have some awareness of Lavender before I reach out to them, right? So using this, I'm not going to say, hey, I saw you follow Lavender, but I know those leads are going to be slightly more receptive to any outreach I send them. But we don't want to reach out to people who we've reached out to before. We don't want to reach out to existing customers. We don't want to reach out to customers who our colleagues are also prospecting. And that's where you might start to use some of the workflow filters and bring those into your searches. So you can start to remove people who are not in your lists. If you have your CRM connected, which I don't, you can remove people who are already in your CRM, which would suggest that someone has probably tried to talk to them in the past. And that will allow you to start seeing net new leads that haven't been touched by your company before. Those are the ones we want when we're cold outbounding. We can also remove anyone who we've already saved into an existing list in our Sales Navigator. So I said I was going to share some stuff that not a lot of people know. Let's get to that. One thing you can do is a keyword search. So a lot of people just ignore this bar at the top, search keywords. What this allows you to do is start to search prospects' profiles for a certain keyword. So if they've got it written in their about section, in any of their job descriptions, in their headline, we're going to be able to search for those words. So if we were looking for people who work in the software industry, generally they're going to mention somewhere on their profile that they sell tech or software, right? So when we type in software up here, we now get the list of results with all of those title filters who mention the word software somewhere on their profile. That's great. This gives us a better idea that most of these companies, Absorb Software, Phoenix Software, Cority, It's going to list by most relevant first, so that's why it's giving us the ones with the software word in it. A pricey, I don't know how to say that. We know all these people likely work in software, right? So we can start to narrow down those searches because now we've gone from 1,000 to 292, which is a much more manageable number to look through. That said, not everyone calls software software. Some people call it SaaS. And this could apply to your industry. For example, in the finance industry, not everyone calls it finance. They might call it accounting, or they might not call themselves accountants. They might call themselves financial analysts. But when we added in SaaS, we got some more results. So we're making sure we're not missing anyone. And what I did there was I typed in the word capital or, which means it's going to search their profile for either of those words. You can start to get really complex of these. So if I start to remove some titles in here, let me just put this in a bracket that isolates the query. And then I can do and VP of sales. So now I'm looking for people with the word software or SaaS in their profile and somewhere the word VP of sales. So I can start to get rid of some of these existing filters and start to rely more on keyword searches because now we're going to be seeing leads that other people aren't finding because they're just using the current job title one. Now, people call themselves a VP of sales. See, we've already increased our results there. But they also call themselves a vice president of sales. With those brackets, I'm searching for the entire query, not just individual words. Close bracket, hit enter. I'm going to get a bunch more results now. You watch. Over 1,000 again. So now we're starting to whittle down this list, but we also can start to remove things from this list that are basically flagging as false positives, right? So if I start scrolling through this, I see an area vice president of sales. For me at Lavender, and I know this example might be harder for folks who don't sell to sales leaders or revenue leaders, but I'm sure you can think of some things that people call themselves that are slightly different. As I mentioned, financial analyst versus accountant, chief financial officer versus controller, for example. You can start to remove those and get more positives. But as I said, this guy here is an area vice president of sales. That's a false positive to me. I don't want to spend looking through area vice president of sales or going through there's another area. We've got, if I scroll down a little bit further, I'm certain I'll see a regional one somewhere. Let me go down a little bit further. Europe here, EMEA, Canada. I want to find the head honcho. I don't want to find the area vice president of sales, let's say. So I can also do not open bracket regional or area or EMEA. Now let's just do regional area for now. It's now going to remove all the people who have the words regional or area in their profile somewhere. So now we're getting that list smaller again, and we're starting to get these really results that now everyone I look through, I'm very confident they actually are a good fit for my software. So using that keyword search, what I'm using here is a technique called boolean strings, allows you to scour profiles for things that aren't being categorized by LinkedIn because those can be giving you too many results or not enough results. So that's where I like to use keywords. Not many people do that. And therefore, these leads are likely being hit up less, likely haven't been found by your company before, and they're going to be new leads as well. We're going to try and get the list as small as possible. We can save the search afterwards. And what's great about saving searches is if you do a really narrow search, it'll actually tell you when there's new people who meet the criteria of your search. So once you've saved a search, it's super narrow. Let's say if I actually throw in here 1 second. I'm going to throw in one last query here and podcast. So now I'm looking for people who are vice president of sales, who have the word SaaS or software in their profile, that aren't the area or regional software, regional VP of sales, and they have the word podcast somewhere in their profile. That would tell me that all of these people are going to be a host of a podcast or frequently guest on podcasts. This is a super narrow search, right? But Tisa, Dan, Kurt, and Patrick Downs there. Look at him, change his name. Are we still connected? Hope he's not blocked me. Anyway, we can save that search using this button here. And then whenever someone else enters that search, maybe they launch a podcast, maybe they join a podcast, we will see that there's new people in there that we can then go listen to those podcasts or maybe reference that in our outreach to them. That was a lot. Went on a little bit longer than I thought it would. I've got an hour, so if we need to stick around and we don't get stuff, we can. But I'm going to look at the chat for a moment because I've been totally ignoring all of you while I've been going. And I want to show you something that's even cooler than this. Social comments display here. Let's have a look. I'm only joining because Will is here. Oh, that's nice, Alexis. Thank you. Sales engineers don't need to do this stuff, I don't think. You can't do radius. You can do zip code targeting, I believe, although they might have removed that. So geography, you can do postal code, zip code. Postal code would be in the UK. So zip code targeting does work, yes. Just looking through here, some questions. Got Detroit, Atlanta. Oh, check it out, Mr. Worldwide over here. Maryland 2.5. Maryland, sorry, not Maryland. So we've got lots of threes in here. So hopefully we're touching on some new stuff. That string there is something that very few people do. If you start to learn that, Google boolean strings to learn some more queries. There's a question here, Natasha. I missed the beginning. How can I watch this later? You can go onto our YouTube channel, where you'll find fun videos like me doing Bob Ross paintings, which is what I was just doing before I jumped on here, which is why I might have some paint on my face, and see other cold email tips as well. Just search Lavender Email on YouTube and you'll find it. All of our live shows that have ever happened are on there. So where was I going with this? The one thing I didn't touch on is that you can search for leads within your account lists. So what's an account list? Well, up here, you can see we're looking for leads right now. We can also look for accounts. And this is where we can start to weave in some personalization points into our searches. So when I'm looking for leads, we're looking for human beings, individuals. When we're looking for accounts, we're looking for companies, essentially. So I'll get rid of all this. So right now, I'm looking for companies that have 200 to 1,000 employees in Canada, right? I've got 4,000 there. The keyword thing still works on this. So this is definitely where software is going to narrow down my search enough, and we're going to find companies that have the word software somewhere in there. Again, we've got Jonas Software development. We've got Absorb Software. They're down as e-learning. They've put their industry wrong. They've put their industry as the customers they serve rather than what their product actually is, which is an IT and software company. So that's why you like doing those keyword searches to narrow down those results a little bit more. That said, there are some really interesting account triggers that aren't available on the linked lead searches that you can start to use. For example, department headcount. For pretty much every software company I've worked for, Lavender, Vidyard, for that Proposify, I would only sell to teams that had 10 or more potential users on the team. So when we start using this, I can switch that department headcount to, let's say, I'm going to keep using sales as an example because it just means my mind has to think less. I'm going to do a minimum of 10 users because that is the point at Lavender where we tend to assign like a mid-market account executive to that. We do inbound leads for smaller companies, but we're not going to go chasing them because the return on investment is lower. And then now we've got companies that have a sales team of more than 10 reps. So now we've narrowed it down to companies that are worth me prospecting because there's enough users there to make it a good size deal. The thing that I mentioned here is the triggers that you don't get to see on the lead one are department headcount growth, number of followers. That's useful if you do social media. Fortune, are they in the Fortune 500 if you're like a key account manager? Technologies used. So technologies used is really interesting because if I did Salesforce, or let's say we just launched a HubSpot integration and I do a HubSpot Sales Hub, then I can see all these folks likely use HubSpot. This can be hit or miss. LinkedIn does sometimes make errors in here, but if you are a HubSpot partner agency, then this is going to be massively faster by using that. Or if you're a company that really complements another tool, let's say they use QuickBooks and you offer an expense solution like Brex, but you integrate really nicely with QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is internal expense management isn't very good, then that's a reason to hit someone up, right? And you can start to use that in your trigger. Hey, it looks like you might be using QuickBooks. A lot of folks find that when they get to a certain size, it stops being a really good expense management software. Other companies have turned to a company like Brex to make it a lot easier on their employees and on reporting when it comes to the end of the month. Sound interesting? So by using that search, we can basically find a bunch of companies that we can reach out to for the same reason, reducing the amount of research we have to do on each and every company individually. One I want to talk about is department headcount growth. So a lot of folks like to target growing companies because it shows that that company is succeeding, they're thriving, they might be more willing to invest in new technologies. I like to also target companies that are not growing because if someone's had to do layoffs, if someone's losing team members due to employee churn or low employee engagement, then that's also a thing that I can reach out to them because our solution can help with that. If I go to sales and I look for companies that have had a minimum of minus 50 to minus 20 headcount growth. So that's now headcount reduction, not growth, because I use the minuses, and I add that in there, I now get 48 companies based in Canada who are the right size who have seen a more than 20% reduction in their sales team headcount in the past 12 months. That's great because I'm not for them, but it's great for me because now I can reach out to all of these companies and say, hey, it looks like you might have had some layoffs. I might want to fact check that, or it looks like you've shrunken headcount a little bit. A lot of folks find that when folks leave, the rest of the team can have low morale, or I can think of another challenge. A lot of folks find that when people leave, their number stays the same, but they've got less employees to hit it. This company used Lavender to improve their email responses. Does this sound interesting? All right. So this is where you can start to weave those triggers in. Once we've got a search in here, we can also save that so we can come back and see where new companies might be hitting those searches. We can save these to a list. So I'm going to save Aliacare, Benevity, Kelly. I'm going to just go through these real quick. Select all, save. And then I can do sales department headcount layoffs as a list. I can then jump back to my lead search, do my current job title thing, VP of sales, include, and then go to my account list and just search within the list of companies that I know have had headcount reductions on the sales team in the past 12 months. Now I've got 17 results, so I can select them all, save them to a list. I'm going to do headcount reduction, create and save. I can then use whatever lead tool solution I'm using, like Lead IQ, Apollo, ZoomInfo, Lucia, Seamless, whatever you're using, to then take them, put them in a sequence that I've written specifically with messaging that mentions layoffs or headcount reduction. That saves me a bunch of time when it comes to actually start reaching out to these people, writing, go on their profile, looking, researching and whatnot, because I can hit all 17 of these people with very similar messaging. I could call through this list of people. Hey, Martin, it's Will Aiken here from Lavender. I'm in the middle of some research. Do you mind if you got a second to help me out? Yeah, sure, Martin. What can I do for you? Sure, Will. What can I do for you? Well, I happen to notice that your sales team's shrunk a little bit in the past 12 months. A lot of folks are finding that layoffs, folks leaving can leave the rest of the team with low morale. So I want to reach out and see how you're currently, coaching and ensuring the rest of the team feel like they're still being enabled. Now I've got a cold call open that I can use for 17 people. That wasn't great. It was just an example off the top of my head. I can write in an email the same thing. I can say, hey, it looks like you've had some layoffs in the past 12 months. A lot of folks find that when a lot of sales leaders are finding that even though people are leaving or being laid off, they've still got to hit the same, 5 million annual sales number with less employees. Guess what? Twilio implemented Lavender last year, and now they're booking twice as many meetings through cold emails than they were even prior to their layoffs. So now I'm getting this really crafty messaging without having to go in depth and research each of these prospects individually because I've done that search in such a smart way. I'm going to stop there. Again, stop ignoring the chat, see if there's any more questions. Can these types of lists be imported to HubSpot? Yes, typically you'll need a third-party tool to do that. LinkedIn will not natively allow you to do that. You're just going to basically find, you're going to have your lists in LinkedIn once you've saved them to that list. I can click across. I can find those headcount reductions. If I had my Lead IQ, Apollo, Seamless extension installed, I can generally grab these people, either push them directly to HubSpot or push them directly to your sales engagement platform, Outreach, SalesLoft, Apollo, Gong Engage, and begin targeting those folks. My favorite one for this, and I don't like saying I'm biased, but I found that the flow from Lead IQ, I used to be able to select the sequence, add them straight into it, and then basically as soon as I'm done with my lead list, I can go ahead and start making my calls through them or sending those folks emails depending on what the first step of my sequence is. So that's what I'd recommend there. What about finding people who are using a particular software such as SAP or Salesforce, which give Will? Yes, that's where in that account search, if I do account filters, you can use the technologies used. I'll do Salesforce, and I'm going to use Sales Cloud. But you know what? I'm not going to do Sales Cloud. I'm going to do Marketer, let's say. Okay, what's not in here? So I'll do Salesforce Marketing Cloud, I guess, if it's even there. This is why I try to use examples that I know well, because it gives me that thing.
Anyway, now I'm getting 220,000 companies that use Salesforce marketing, Salesforce as a CRM. So that's where you can use that. I do err on the outside of caution. Those a lot of these intent tools flag incorrect technologies, so it's not perfect. You might get some people who aren't using those technologies, which is why I like to use observations like it looks like you're using Salesforce. That's a label, as Chris Voss likes to call it, because that way you're not being assumptive in the fact they're using Salesforce. You can just say it looks like you are, or it seems like you're using Salesforce, or it seems like you're using HubSpot, or it seems like you're using QuickBooks. So that's where I'd use that. Got a couple of questions. More here. Can these types of lists be imported? I missed the beginning. Yep. So you can always watch this on YouTube afterwards as well. I'm going to keep going because there was a couple of things I wanted to do. I know this was scheduled for half an hour, but if you want to stick around or ask some questions, I'm happy to keep going with those. This will be on YouTube afterwards as well. So I assume some folks are going to find this after the fact as well. In those lead lists, a couple more hacks that you can use. I like to, whenever I book a meeting with someone or I speak to someone or I close a deal with someone, I'll add them to a list in Sales Navigator. I'll call this like my old champions and my old customers. I can check this once a week and I can just, you'll see the whole list here. These are all the people, let's say, I've sold to in the past. And then I switch across this tab and I can see the people who have changed jobs in the past 90 days who are part of that list. So my old champions who have moved to a new company, who know me, might trust me, they might hate me, or might have bought from in the past. This is another way to find people who you can keep engaging and retain that network value so that, you can reduce lift there. LinkedIn Sales Navigator has a separate inbox to the one that's on the core LinkedIn. So that's because a lot of these Sales Navigators are often paid for by companies and they integrate directly with CRMs. So they want to keep the inbox separate because they don't want a company to be able to see their employee as maybe considering a job or something like that. They encourage you to send in-mails on LinkedIn. I have found very little success with in-mails. I know Will Allred, my boss, and founder of Lavender, has written a really good blog article on it. But I haven't tested any of those techniques since he did that, so I couldn't even verify that. But I find the best course of action is to connect with someone directly. Let's say if I go to that search here, do my lead filters, you can actually look for people who have, there was one here, 1 second. Viewed your profile in the last 90 days. So if you connect with a bunch of people and you see, let's say if I pull up one of my saved searches, I'll do this one. If I go through and connect with everyone on this search, and then I go to the see all filters here, and I go to, oh yeah, I've already got in here, viewed my profile in the past 90 days, then I can see 310 results of people who have viewed my profile. If these are people I'd sent a connection request to and they hadn't accepted, but they had viewed my profile, then I can assume those people have ignored my connection request. You can actually do a thing on the back end of LinkedIn where you go into your settings, you can start withdrawing connection requests, which might give you a second chance of hitting these people up again in 6 months' time. Maybe this time you don't include a note or you do include a note. It's a manual process withdrawing connection requests, but if you've got a very limited pool of prospects, that's a worthwhile exercise so you can get another shot at getting their attention on LinkedIn, because if you're not connected with them, your only option is in-mail. And as I mentioned before, in-mails don't tend to perform very well for me personally. What was the CRM I just mentioned? Salesforce, I think, HubSpot. I mentioned a few lead generation tools as well. So yes. Just trying to think if there's any other hacks here. Oh, yeah, I'll tell you what. So this is feisty, all right? You didn't hear it from me, folks. I'm going to remove these spotlights. So now I'm looking for VPs of sales who are based in North America. I can do connections of. This is sneaky. People like this one when I talk about this. I can, with the connections of filter, I can search for people who are connected with someone that I'm also connected with. So if I went for like Will Allred, for example, then what I'm going to see is all the people who meet these criteria who are mutual connections of Will and I. Laurie, Ed, I'm going to see all the people who meet these criteria who are also connections of Will, who I might not be connected with. So I can see all these people who Will Allred's connected with, who meet my VP of sales in North America with this headcount size. Will might have some settings that don't allow people who want to see this, because there is a setting you can toggle this on or off of to avoid this happening. But let's say I don't want to look at people who are connected with Will. I might want to look to people who are connected with my competitors' customer success managers. This is real feisty, all right? So Amelia Taylor, hopefully she didn't see this, is used to work at a company that competes with Lavender. I could whack her in here. And now I'm going to see a bunch of people who are connected with Amelia. Let's say Amelia was a customer success manager at that company. I can make a kind of, if Amelia was in customer success, I can make an assumption that these folks might be customers of the company that Amelia used to work for. Kelsey Calabro, she used to be a CRM at Dooley. I can assume that the 21 results here, Mark Vision, IDS, are customers of Dooley. So if I was working for a competitor of them, like Scratchpad, and I knew that Dooley had some lacking functionality in a certain area that was causing customers to churn, I could hit these folks up. I'm not going to say, hey, I see you're a customer of Dooley, but I can say, hey, a lot of folks are finding that HubSpot integration is a real frustration of theirs, whatever it may be. If you know that the Dooley doesn't do something and you work for Scratchpad, you don't say, I know you're a customer of Dooley, but you poke at a pain point that you know they're going to be feeling because Dooley doesn't have that functionality. And then you say, our customers are over the moon because with us, they can directly integrate with HubSpot and have their data flow seamlessly to it. So that's a little bit of a cheeky way to do it. You didn't hear it from me. I have done that before and seen some really good success from it. I used to work for a company called Proposify. They are a proposal software. Most folks are using like an e-sign software, but they're not quite at proposal software level yet. So I could connect with a DocuSign or a HelloSign account manager or customer success rep, and then search for my VP of sales or VP of sales operations or VP of revenue operations or head of revenue operations. Assume that they're probably using DocuSign because they're connected with one of those CSMs. And I can hit them up and say, a lot of folks are using e-sign these days, but they're finding there's no way to control what the rep actually puts into the e-sign. So they're getting contracts signed that have, unapproved discounts, out of date language, the wrong contract attached, whatever it may be. So that can be really helpful when targeting. It's just one more extra way to sequence those folks and use specific messaging to them that's more likely to resonate. Are you able to filter by revenue? So not by the lead search, but yes, by the account search. You can. That's why you want to use account searches, really. So if I go across to annual revenue here, I can do USD minimum 10 million to maximum of 100 million. Let's just say we know that no company with over 100 million in revenue has ever bought our tool. We're not going to want to even look at them. Although it may be tempting, but like, whoa. Realistically, we want to give ourselves the best chance of talking to people who we know are like the people who have bought from us in the past. So then we're going to whittle that search down even more. Again, take these numbers with a slight pinch of salt, but I found this revenue number is a lot more accurate than the technologies used filter. Again, another reason why you might want to go through here and search for accounts and then go back to your lead search and include that account list in your, and then look through that account list for the right people within those accounts, right? So that's why using those two in tandem makes you a lot more effective, because in lead search, you can't search for revenue. You can't search for technologies used. You can't look for minimum department headcount. You can only go by company size. And some companies with 100 employees have a sales team of 3 people. Some companies with 100 employees have a sales team of 20 people. Every company is slightly different. So by company size alone, that's not a great filter to use, which is why I use the account filters, save the accounts, and then go back to the lead filters and look through the list of that I've built of those accounts that I know look like fits. So include that. Boom. Right. I think that's a lot all at once. Do you have any questions before we sign off here? We went on over 10 minutes, but as I mentioned, my calendar's empty right now for the next 20 minutes. So if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. One thing I will drop in LinkedIn real quick. Am I doing this tab just so you can't see any of my searches? I'm going to jump onto the live show on both my profile and on Lavender. I did a couple of tutorials that break down like basic pro advanced skills for Sales Navigator in my previous role at SalesFeed. And I will just drop a link to those because those, I might have missed something here today, and those are really in depth. So let me just grab those and I'll drop them in the chat here. Where's the comments? Here we go. I'm going to just drop it in the comments on my profile there. You might have to copy and paste that because LinkedIn Lives don't allow links to show up in the comments. And then I'll do the same thing in the Lavender account as well. Here we go. So I'll just drop a link in the comments for a bit more of an in-depth tutorial that you can check out. Hopefully this comes through. And then there's a second video part to this as well. Boom. All right. Assuming, let me just go back to the stream and make sure I'm not missing anything. Doesn't look like it. Missed the beginning. How can I watch tonight? Go head on over to YouTube or watch one of those. Watch one of those videos that I just linked because they're a little bit more concise, but there wouldn't be any questions in there as well. Other than that, I think we're kind of done here. So I'm not going to hang around too long. I've got to go finish my Bob Ross painting over here, which is coming along swimmingly, if I do say so myself. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you did tune in, if you're coming later, thanks for coming by, and drop any comments that you might have. I monitor all those accounts, so I'll see them. If you have a question that you weren't able to ask while I was on here, I will respond to that using the Lavender account. Not in the comments where we ask questions. Craig, if you just ask any questions in the stream thing, I'll find them afterwards. I'll see them no matter what because I manage it's on my profile and Lavender's and the YouTube channel. YouTube channel is probably the best place because the comments are harder to miss there. So if you head on over to the YouTube channel, smash that subscribe button while you're there because good stuff coming up. You'll see the Bob Ross painting very soon. All right.